Hey, this is More Than Velocity. I'm Bart Pear here with Jordan Segura, and we are excited today because we have Josh Kauten with K's Training Academy out of Bloomington, Illinois. They have been using arm care for quite a while. It's quite a nice facility, got over 200 athletes they work with regularly, and just thought it was time to have him on board and kind of talk about what they're doing that's successful, and I think it's going to be a good podcast here. So, Josh, first of all, welcome, and why don't you just give a little background about who you are and how case training started, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, appreciate it, Bart and Jordan. Really excited to get on here and kind of spread the word, as it were. Armcare.com has kind of been an answer to a lot of our issues. But a little bit about me. I grew up in small town Iowa, middle of cornfields. I'm an old guy. Graduated high school in 2000. Wasn't very good in high school. Small town. If you play anything, you got to play them all. So I was a four-sport athlete. In the summer in Iowa, they play summer baseball, so I ran track as well as the regular football track cycle. But just wasn't very good. Graduated high school in a small town of 5,000. They're like our number four-ish pitcher. I graduated like at 6'3", 165 pounds, maybe touching 82 if I was good. I walked on to a community college. Honestly, probably the only reason I went there was because my psychology teacher in high school was also the pitching coach, and I would play him in chess through recess and talk trash, all that. But one thing led to another, and walked on to Kirkwood Community College, which is a pretty good program in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Um, Went all in and got less terrible. Put on some weight and ended up transferring to Illinois State, in Bloomington Normal, Illinois, which is where I reside now, which is a D1 in the Valley. Had some okay success there, and then was lucky enough to get drafted by the Tigers in '04 in the 11th round. Kicked around there for 3 years, and then went to Indy ball for 2 years. And those who can't play coach. And into my career, saw the writing on the wall. What was next? Heartland Community College in Bloomington Normal was just kind of an idea and was starting up. And one of my training partners who was in AAA ended up taking the hitting job there at Heartland, and asked what my plans were. And it was one of those timing things, right? Where I didn't really know what was next, but I knew my career wasn't going the way I wanted it. I didn't have a lot of answers. And so I ended up retiring, so to speak, / forced retired. And went right into Heartland Community College as the pitching coach and strength coach. My background was in kinesiology. In college, again, I was terrible. So I knew I wanted to play at the highest level. And if my body was going to be my vessel to do that, I needed to figure it out. And so I got into the strength conditioning side of things. And everybody asked me what I wanted to do when I grew up. And the only answer I could come up with was a baseball. So kinesiology was the closest thing I could get to. And so it just kind of, this is a natural, lucky progression that I was literally sending workouts from my last professional season back to the college for the pitchers to complete until I got there on site. But brand new program. They started in '07. I started as pitching and strength guy in '08 and was there from '08 to '14, both in full-time capacity as pitching and strength guy there. But we had some pretty good success in a short amount of time. Like, we didn't even have our own fields. We didn't have our own weight room. We were, the most blue collar, ragtag, JUCO, piecing it together. But it was good because if you were here at Heartland back in those days, you had to really want to be here, and you believed in it, and you were gritty. And so I got to implement a lot of the things that I learned, but I got to, I guess you could say, experiment on the things that didn't really add up in my training career. In my training career, I was, college was going up, and I got to pro ball and kind of stagnated and even started going down. And so just kind of reflected back on my career of like what happened and some of the things that didn't make sense. And I got to kind of implement my strategies with those guys. And we had a lot of success. We finished top 5 in the country 3 consecutive years. Again, within a period of having a program for 6 years, which was pretty good. Things were going great, but junior college coaching, you're basically almost volunteering. So had a wife, had a kid, had one on the way. Loved it, but was kind of looking at the writing on the wall of like, I can't keep doing this and support my family. So what's next? Looked at college coaching, looked at some minor league possibilities, but just didn't think it stacked up very well for what goals I had for my community, or for my family rather. And so kind of my only option was, if I want to stay in this game that I love, and I can't do it at a 4-year institution and not move my family across the country and not leave my family for 9 months a year to be in the minor league game, I got to do it private. And so like anybody else, I was doing lessons on the side, trying to survive. And basically I thought the lesson model was broken. And, kid shows up January 2nd for a bullpen, and shows up 4 minutes before his bullpen, gives him some arm circles and starts ripping heaters, no warm up. He leaves immediately
And when you
after the
say ripping
lesson.
heaters, you're talking Marlboro Reds, right?
Yes, yeah, straight Camels, unfiltered. Yeah, 16-year-olds. We got to toughen them up a little bit. But no, it was a broken model, right? Like, these kids, they weren't really prepping all off season. They weren't really all in. Again, this is back in the day. This is 2011-ish, 12-ish. And I got so full with my time, and I thought the model was broken. We live in a cold state. Are they even throwing between lessons? Are they even ramped up properly? Doubtful. And so I had a couple parents kind of pestering me to do something similar, anything like I was doing with Heartland. And I think if I could hang my hat on anything Heartland, success was nice, but we only had 2 TJs in 6 years. And when you're talking about basically flipping your program over every year, you generally will run out there with about 16 to 18 arms, and you flip half of or more over every year. So if you're talking about sheer head count of pitchers, I've never gone back and done the actual number, but you're probably in the upwards of 70 to 80 arms in those 6 years. And to only have 2 TJs were, in the moment, I didn't really think it was a big deal, but reflecting back, it was a pretty big deal to stay that healthy. And so they just wanted to know, what the heck were we doing? Is there anything like that we could offer for the high school kids in our community? And I said, I don't have time. I'm doing recruiting. I'm doing strength conditioning. I got one kid, one on the way. Sure, whatever. I'll offer this 2-day-a-week program that kind of just talks about proper pre-throw work, proper post-throw work. We'll throw an evaluation in there that we were really fortunate to have a really good athletic trainer. His name is Satoshi Kajiyama, aka Tosh. He's a wizard. He was actually in pro ball with the Red Sox for a while. Then he was the lead trainer for the Hiroshima Carp for a while. And then he was back with the Cubs with Seiya Suzuki the last 2 years with the Cubs. And now he's back in Japan. So really, really smart guy to have him there. And so we were kind of collaborating on, how can we, screen these guys better, just basic testing, ER, IR, some manual muscle testing, that type of stuff. And so essentially that's how the program started. Is I thought I'll send an email out to my lessons list. I'll get 7 to 10 guys, and we'll do this thing 2 days a week for an hour, just making sure that they're getting a day of long toss in between their bullpens. We're going to do a proper on ramp. We're not just going to come out of the gates, throwing as hard as we can. And I got 45 guys, and I was like, oh crap. Apparently there's a need. I got to figure this thing out pretty quick, and just kind of exploded from there, man. The next year was 75. The next year was 99. The next year was like 110. And this last year was our 10th year of running what I didn't know what to call it. Nobody can pronounce my last name right. And so it looks like Kauten. So Coach K was kind of the default setting. And obviously that is reserved for the one and only Krzyzewski. So I was the JUCO version of the Coach K, which happens to be my Twitter handle, is the JUCO Coach K. And so we just kind of went from it, man. But this is our 10th year. We had over 200 and I think 40-ish kids in our winter arm care program, all in. And kind of going back to, I said we started screening guys right away. The biggest thing is we would do an intake, right? We would do the screen. We would do the IR range of motion, ER range of motion. We would do some, AD duction tests, some hip IR, ER tests, just basic stuff, and then the manual muscle testing. Well, when you got one device that is ultra expensive and you got one person running the test, it's a pretty big bottleneck. And when it was, 30, 40 guys, it was annoying, but not a big deal. But when you got 200 kids, it's like, this is a problem. And there just wasn't enough hours in the day to bring a kid in and screen him, have me stand there, or, even if I would train some of my staff, there's some variability right there. If I got, coach A testing this week and coach B testing next week, and
Yep.
is he setting hard enough base to make sure there's no movement in the manual muscle device? And so it was cumbersome. And so we really only did it twice. We did it intake and on the way out. So we would do it in October-ish, and we would do it again in February-ish. And we would see great results, but we knew that we wanted to do more, but you only have them for so much time. And this is where armcare.com, I'm kind of, full disclosure, I'm kind of pissed. I didn't think of it. So good job, guys. But it's kind of been the answer to a lot of our issues, and it's been a huge value add, and really drives a lot of our programming. So that was the longest winded introduction of all time, but that's how we got here. That's who I am. And that's how we fell into armcare.com.
It was good. And I'm just thinking back to the low injury rates you had, and Jordan can probably chime in on this, but the fact that, you were overseeing pitching and strength, and those things, Jordan sees a lot where those things are siloed and they're not communicating, and they're almost kind of creating problems. And I think just you overseeing all of it had a big play in that, and just knowing what's going on, and being able to, holistically treat these guys.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it was a lot, but when I was looking to move on, a lot of people were like, well, you got to pick one, strength or pitching. And I was like, no, I don't. The strength and conditioning made me a better pitching coach, and being a pitching coach made me a better strength coach, because I just I saw the way an athlete move, and maybe I didn't have it written down and concrete, but anecdotally, I could see with my eyes what was happening with that athlete. I could control that athlete's workload from a conditioning standpoint. There was never any cross-ups where the pitcher was ripping out like, upper body day and then going throwing a bullpen. And, there was never any, Omaha or Enid challenge, where you were burying a guy and then, oh, by the way, you got to throw a bullpen. So it was really nice from that standpoint.
Which is still shocking to me. I have a kid in a major Division I, but they had him lift upper body at like 7:30 in the morning, and then he threw a bullpen at 1 in the afternoon.
Yeah, I hear of that as well.
Nightmares. It reminds me of the nightmares I had.
Yeah, I'm just like, how is this still happening in Division I programs? Where I just had a call last, couple months ago, where a program basically everybody was doing the same lift. Doesn't matter, pitcher, lift, position player, and that's fine. We don't really delineate too much there, other than like modality, but it didn't matter. Tuesday was upper body day. It didn't matter if that was your bullpen day or not. It was, everybody's lifting upper body today. I'm like,
yeah,
what are we doing? So anyways.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that combining the strength aspect and the skill aspect, whether it's a hitting coach, infield coach, whatever it may be, I think people try to silo those, like Bart was saying, too much. And if anything, that creates this crossroad to where it's like you have to choose one or the other, but they're both connected to an extreme amount, to where if you have the right combination of strength training and you can make the strength training more skill based, and I'm not saying that 100% of everything has to be based around what the movement is, because I think there's an issue there as well, but they try to either over complicate or under complicate, and then that carries over to poor performance or injury on the field, to where, just like you're saying, there's too many times that I've had a lot of friends coaching still at the D1 level where they go, look, my strength coach is insisting that these guys need to lift all in the same schedule, but this guy throws a bullpen on Tuesdays, this guy throws one on Wednesdays, this guy pitches on Friday, this is a reliever that we used to get 2 days in a row with a day off, but they're lifting all the exact same. It doesn't make sense. And my background's similar to where my bachelor's and my master's is both in kinesiology, with movement and strength backgrounds in it, but I'm a pitching coach. But that has helped me so much in understanding that, yeah, if I'm never really changing the way these guys are training, they're always at these high dosages all the time. So what most people do is it's like, hey, you pitched 105 pitches. Well, the next day you're going to have this big, heavy, a lot of guys go heavy upper body lifts. Well, I just hit your upper body twice heavy in the same, like in a 24-hour window. So now how am I going to get back from recovered on there? So being able to combine the two, to me, and maybe it's a bad, I think this should be a mandate. This could be the worst idea in the world. I don't know. But I think every single pitching coach should have to have some type of knowledge of strength and conditioning. To me, it just makes sense because you have to take care of those arms. You have to take care of the way that they're prepping, and you have to take care of the way they're recovering.
Yeah, 100% agree. And I think back when I was kind of looking at jobs, it was almost a detriment that I did both, because I didn't, I wasn't all in on one. But now, as the industry's changed and people are understanding how important human movement is on the mound, it's really kind of been a blessing in disguise. Just, I'm glad that I stuck with it and didn't cave into the, pigeonhole into one. And I 100% agree. And I think the industry is changing rapidly. A lot of my, really high level pitching coach friends in the business are really, really doing a good job of educating themselves about the human body. And, we'll have some text threads going around and ask me about stuff that I'm like, okay, man, like this guy's locked in. He's understanding maybe some periodization. He's understanding some baseline functional anatomy. I'm like, all right, like the game's elevating for sure, not just for the athletes, but the coaches as well. And the guys at the highest level, most of them really do have a pretty solid understanding of some functional anatomy, especially the younger coaches.
So Josh, you've got quite a few athletes going through there. I'm curious the ages, and are you using arm care differently with the younger athletes and some of the older? How does that work?
Yeah, so in terms of our facility, we try to do a good job of serving our community. But pitching development is what we do. That's probably biased because I was pitcher, and that's what I'm the most passionate about, and development and health. But we've got roughly 400 to 500 athletes that will come through here on a given week in the off season. We have a pretty solid caseload of remote athletes as well. Pushing up into that 100 range on the remote athletes, and then a handful of pro guys that I work with pretty directly. So for the youth guys, like the junior highs and below, the eighth graders, they really want to be high schoolish. So some of the eighth graders, we kind of depend on their maturity level. We'll sometimes give them some free reign, but for the most part, anything junior high and below is coach led, where there's literally a coach. All right, everybody lay on the back, here's how we do it. Everybody connect your device. From the high school athletes, basically, we will onboard them at the eval and teach them how to do it once. And for the most part, they will do it before they get into their throwing program. And obviously post bullpen, they'll do their recovery or their post test. And then the pro guys and college guys, right? Those guys are pretty self-sufficient. It's such an easy thing to do right. And the videos are really easy. Now, those guys find new ways to cheat all the time, not intentionally, but maybe on their setup. And so you got to kind of monitor them a little bit just to make sure they're not cheating, head up or feet up, or however they can squeak out another pound of ER, kind of skewing their results. But so that's kind of how we implement it on the front end. And for us, again, it's a time thing, right? Like we don't have 40 minutes for every group of 8 to 10 guys that come through to manually test all of them. We just expect that they get it in, and then we will keep an eye on them on the background just to make sure they're not cheating. And then we will actually make them report their scores and their ratios before their bullpen. So they have to literally pull up their phone, show us their score and their ratio and their analytics to make sure there's no drop-offs from last week if it's a high intent day. And if it's a high intent day and it's looking bad, we'll do more anecdotal, like, how do you feel? Any issues? Maybe we just pump it down to like 90-95% today instead of, really trying to press the envelope. But so that's how we implement it in person. Remotely, it's nice because one of our biggest challenges as a facility is, once for high school athletes, for say, March 1st hits and they're off with their high school, and we try to do a good job of, especially locally, connecting with a lot of the high school coaches and making sure that we're not the guy competing behind their backs. We're the guy that's trying to really just be a partner in this for them. And this year, what we did actually is we set up individual high school accounts for admin, and then gave their high school coaches, access to see it too. So that literally their high school coaches could monitor if their athletes were testing or not. Because for their standpoint, it's really hard for them to know, Johnny is supposed to start today and he says, hey, I'm kind of hanging. Well, you don't want to be the bad coach that makes a kid throw through a sore arm and a fatigued arm and now he blows out. But maybe he's just a high school kid that's never thrown that much and doesn't really know what arm soreness is like. And, if you only threw when your arm felt great, you probably wouldn't pitch very much. So, maybe today's a day you just got to grit it out and get some early contact rather than trying to reach back from extra velo. And so it's just an extra tool that's objective. And a lot of these young athletes are not very good at correctly identifying the difference between arm soreness, arm pain. Are they ready to throw? Are they not? So this is just a really good tool for the high school coaches, especially to kind of just have a good data set of like, oh, okay, you said you don't feel good. What was your score? Hey, your score is really bad. Like, did you do your arm prep this week? Well, I was going to, but I got, sidetracked and I didn't. It's like, okay, maybe we cut you on short pitch count today. You got a quick leash or something to that effect. So that was a really nice tool for a lot of the high school coaches to basically know that our mutual athletes that train with us, they can at least look at their program and say, all right, I can look on the admin and see who's logging in, who's not, whose arm maybe is flagged, is losing a lot of strength. It was just a good collaboration tool for sure.
Yeah, that's a big thing is it's player led. You're allowing the player to just get in there, do it, because if it's taking time off of a coach's plate to where now they can't be as hands-on with the athlete, it's really not that great of a tool. And that's one of the things when we were developing this is we wanted to make sure the players could run it, show you the data, the coach makes the adjustment, they're good to go.
Yeah, for sure. It's like I said, for us as a facility, it was just a really big tool because sometimes facilities, and maybe for, stereotypes exist for a reason, but unfortunately we get stereotyped sometimes that like once the kid leaves our training, so to speak, March 1st, they're going to their high school. We're trying to be hands off. It's like, well, you don't even care. It's like, well, what do you want us to do? You want us to like, be in your front lawn and look over the kid and talk to him all the time. So it was a good tool for us to like track, and we would actually communicate and flag guys and say, hey, I see you haven't signed in. You haven't done a test in 3 weeks. What's up? Or, hey man, like I looked at your test and you're down 20%. Like, are you okay? I haven't seen you in the facility getting your arm care in. Are you doing it on your own? So just an accountability tool. You can't really hide. And then summer ball as well, right? We train, we just kind of started our own travel teams from a high school standpoint. A couple of years ago, we partnered with a larger program called Rhino Baseball. He owns it. His name's Greg Blazing and Andrew Tahako. Greg was my college catcher at Illinois State. So Rhino K's, we kind of collabed, and but for the most part, we train anybody and everybody. And so when they go off to their summer team, it's impossible for us to keep track of everybody, but it's really easy for us to go into the admin side, pull up who's tested most recently, who hasn't tested in 30 days, and shoot some text and just keep tabs on guys. So it's a really, really easy quality tool.
Very, very cool. I know you were saying that those high school athletes don't really understand their bodies, but Jordan, I'm sure, dealt with a few pros who didn't quite understand their bodies as well. So it's not just the young guys, but and actually just having the responsibility to take ownership of it. That it's kind of the way the game is these days. Going into college, like you got to perform, day one. It's not the development process that it used to be. So getting those guys really taking accountability is a big step, and it's important at that early age for sure.
And then kind of piggybacking on what the high school, right? Like you said, the original question was, how do we do it with different ages? So the high school guys, it's a lot about, like you said, just taking accountability of your career. It's not your dad's career. It's not your coach's career. It's your career. And so when colleges will call me and ask me what they got on a guy, they're not asking his velo and his spin rate. They can see all that. It's, is he working hard? Is he is he tough? Is he a competitor? Is he a good teammate? Is he accountable? Or do you have to hold his hand? Like, so I just tell guys like, hey man, what do you want me to tell a college coach? They're asking me about you and you haven't tested in 4 weeks and you've only come for like a third of your lifts. Like, what do you want me to say? From a college standpoint, again, that's always a tricky thing too, because we do a lot in the summer, obviously, because guys are done, and a little bit over the winter. But again, you're not trying to meddle in the middle of college's programs. But we use it we have a variable guys that come in college for the summer. So some guys will come in and say, hey, I'm pitching all summer and I want to work on a third pitch, or I need to improve my command, or so we use it just the same way for high school guys, but more of like a recovery, metric of like where you at in relation to, 4 weeks ago. But we also have the guys that come in and need some velo, guys that maybe aren't training in the summer or aren't playing in the summer rather, and they're just training. And so similar to the deal what I was saying earlier, like we use it as a metric. They have to literally show me their score. So if we're going to do like an overload, underload, or something that's more aggressive, they have to essentially pass into it's like a cover charge at a bar, as it were. You gotta show me your cover charge to get in to do the work. So it's just a really good tool, and it's guys are really starting to kind of like, man, I feel like crap today, but my score's okay. Okay, maybe I am okay. Or hey, I feel really good today and my score's up. Like, all right, let's talk about it. How was your sleep? How was your nutrition? What did you do this week from a recovery standpoint? So that when they get into their season, they have the confidence to know what their routine is going to be to make them the best prep for the day that they need to compete. So it's just a really good feedback tool there. And then again, college, high school or pro guys, rather. I mean, most of those organizations have plenty of guys to kind of overlook it, but it's just a good way to stay in touch with those guys and not be too much in their front lawn, so to speak.
Cool. Hey, Josh, I mean, everything you're saying here, and we know because you've been using it for a while, just a great academy up there in Bloomington. I appreciate you coming on, and until next time, you guys take care.